Let's go to US politics now and talk about some of the amazing trumped-up scandals we've had this year. First up, let's look at how the ABC has reported a story that's come out from The Atlantic, through The Atlantic magazine earlier this week, and media around the world went hard with this.
4 unnamed sources claim the president was more concerned with his hair in the rain, telling senior staff, "Why should I go to that cemetery? It's filled with losers." The president's in damage control, reversing a decision by the Pentagon to close a military newspaper. The Atlantic's story has now been corroborated by several other media outlets and denied by numerous White House officials, past and present.
I didn't hear either of those comments or anything even resembling them.
As usual, it's now a case of competing truths and high stakes.
There they go. They went hard with it. You would have seen the story. Jack Houghton, you keep a close eye on US politics. This story was just repeated. Anonymous sources, discredited, but so much media in the US and around the world reported this feverishly as fact.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing that stands out to me is John Bolton, who obviously really dislikes Trump, has written about him extensively, criticises him regularly. He says it is a hoax. So I don't really need anything else other than that man saying it's a hoax for me to understand what's happening. And I think, look, let's just draw our attention to maybe the Steele dossier that ended up being written by the Democratic Party themselves that was making all those allegations against Donald Trump. The Russian collusion hoax, which has been empirically debunked. And this media over there has form. And they have form of just throwing things out there from unnamed sources. You could not publish that allegation in Australia. Obviously, defamation laws are a lot stricter, but for some reason, the editorial standards over in the US are so loose that you can publish a series of unsubstantiated claims that have no faces to them, and everyone just runs on with the story. Well, I just find that incredible.
They pick apart everything Trump says and exposes when he lies or gets things wrong, as so they should, but they run any lie they like themselves. You mentioned John Bolton and the fact that him poo-pooing this story was really the end of it. David Lipson there for the ABC put a little grab of John Bolton in his story to sort of cover himself. But let's have a look at this from Fox, where you get a better understanding of just how emphatically this story has been debunked.
Former National Security Advisor John Bolton was in a meeting to discuss whether the president should make the trip.
John Bolton, no friend of mine, but he wrote a book, and he talks about this incident, and he doesn't mention it.
Bolton told Fox News this afternoon he never heard the president mention suckers or losers in relation to U.S. war dead.
I didn't hear either of those comments or anything even resembling them. I was there at the point in time that morning when it was decided that he would not go to An Marne Cemetery. He decided not to do it because of John Kelly's recommendation. It was entirely a weather-related decision, and I thought the proper thing to do.
2 other former aides who were in the meeting confirmed the same thing to Fox News.
Yeah, there you go, Gemma. As Jack said, if anyone was going to talk this up and try and damage Trump with this, it would be John Bolton, but he was in the room and says it's not true. And we've had another story come out this week too with the Woodward recording. A great scandal, great revelation that Trump was talking down the pandemic. Donald Trump has stood in front of media conferences since February and said, I am talking this down, I am deliberately talking this down. There's nothing new in it.
Yeah, that's something you can absolutely file under not news. It's been, as you said, it's been something that he's said verbatim for some time now. Look, it's sort of have a little bit of despair in terms of how sections of the US media are playing their coverage of Trump. I mean, there is enough to report without embellishing, without sort of ducking and weaving and creating a narrative that simply doesn't exist. And
he's a big enough target, isn't he, without making it up?
Yeah, there's a lack of things to cover and a lack of things to analyse. And we circle back to this issue of trust in the media. Well, there's another reason. You've got, on the one hand, a primary source, not just a secondary source, a primary source in John Bolton, who was in that meeting saying it didn't happen. I don't like the guy. I think he's an idiot, but it didn't happen. And then on the other side, you've got all of these, conflicted journalists running unidentified sources and secret sources, which have their place in news coverage, don't get me wrong, but they're running unidentified sources, who knows whether they're primary, secondary or whatever, contradicting a bloke who was in the room who doesn't like Trump and says it didn't happen. Why do people not trust the media? There's exhibit 7,452.
Yeah. It is the very definition of fake news, and thanks for helping me to expose it to Gemma Tognini and Jack Houghton.
It's a pleasure, Chris.